Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach. I've spent 40 years helping people self differentiate and learn a family systems approach to relationships and problems. And today's video is entitled 5 Family Systems Ways to a Healthier Relationship. And these are things that I help couples work on when I work with them, or even individuals, because you can work as an individual in a family systems way to improve your relationship. And so, number 1, focus on self-functioning. And I think that's very important. Whenever there are problems in the relationship, when you want to improve the relationship, get the focus off your spouse, your relationship, the other person, your partner. Get the focus on you. What can you do to change your functioning in the relationship? Because that puts pressure on the relationship in a mature way to grow and change. So if I change, it puts pressure on a relationship for all boats to rise. When I change me, stabilize yourself, particularly if there are problems or conflicts. Work on stabilizing you rather than I won't be stable, I won't be okay, I'll feel this anger, resentment, anxiety until they change. That's not a good way to get a relationship in a healthier place. And remember, after we get the focus off the other, we now have our issues to deal with, which we have some power over, and we are empowered to do that, versus distracting us from our issues and the work of individuating and self-differentiation. We get distracted with the problems, the symptoms, the issues, how they function. We get distracted with all of that and take the focus off us. And that can be a real problem. It's also bringing down, when we work on us as being a whole person, when we work on us in a relationship, it reduces that making two selves into one. In other words, they and me together equal a whole self. No, we want me to have a whole self, they to have a whole self, and we come together. That's the ideal. And so when we focus on us, we're taking that focus off of the 50-50 marriage or the 50-50 relationship. Healthy relationships are 100%, 100%. Not 50-50, because then we're leaning on them, we're needing them for so many things that they can fail in or not provide for us, that maybe we should be providing for ourselves. Second of all, remember your family of origin is a part of your relationships. Even today, your family of origin is a part of your relationships. And this is the key to functioning and getting the love that you want. This is a very important key. And there's a very good book, Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. Great book, great workbook. Getting the Love You Want talks about dealing with and recognizing how we're functioning from time long ago and how it's showing up now. And that gives us some power to make some changes and to understand ourselves more. And also it allows for us to get the love that we're wanting. We can begin to learn how our fusion and enmeshment and unresolved triangles with our family of origin can influence our relationships now. Even though I was triangulated between my dad and mom, they are both now deceased, doesn't mean that triangle stopped operating when they passed away. It may still be operating within me, and if I don't deal with that, I'm going to bring that to a relationship. And that's going to be a part of how we function in a relationship in the present. I do like to say that parents are not causes, but they are receptors and conduits of that multi-generational emotional process. They inherited, we inherited, and they're a conduit and a receptor of those things. That's different than they're just the cause. Now, that doesn't take away their responsibility or things they have done wrong, if they have been abusive and all those things. Certainly, they take moral and adult responsibility and should for those behaviors, which they may take responsibility for or not. But if we see them not as causes but as receptors and of conduits, we can begin to see a larger zoom out perspective of the family and be able to function better as an individual. Because they are as much caught in their family of origin emotional process as we are with them in our family of origin emotional process. Again, that doesn't excuse away any bad behavior. We still have to take responsibility for our choices. I mean, I may have been abused. I may have been psychologically abused. I may have been grew up in poverty that was so crushing and those kinds of things. And then I go rob a bank. Well, I can't tell the judge you should let me off because I've had a bad childhood. No, we still have responsibility for our actions. Now, there may be reasons and maybe factors and emotional dynamics that come into play for me robbing a bank, but I still have to take responsibility. The judge is not going to say, "Oh, well, okay, then you don't have to go to jail because you had a bad childhood." Often we try to fix or we try to perfect our family of origin, or we try to change them, and we live this out in this self in family of origin, all in hyphens, our self in family of origin, in our current relationships, our marriages, and our friendships. If we can understand this dynamic and this truth, and there are ways to learn about that, Roberta Gilbert, Extraordinary Relationships. She also has Extraordinary Leadership, and she explains more of that and how to see that. Also does Jenny Brown, Growing Yourself Up. If we begin to accept this as a part of our reality and accept this as a part of our paradigm, then we can become more flexible, more free, and more clear in relationships. And that's what happens as we become more self-differentiated. We become more flexible, more free, and more clear. Thirdly, turn your negative feelings into self-knowledge. Now that's hard because it seems like, well, you're causing me to have these negative feelings. When actuality, we're having these negative feelings, often because we're triggered, many times because of our own past. So we're triggered by something our spouse or friends or someone else may do. But we want to turn those negative feelings into self-knowledge. Turn blame into self-knowledge. See your part in the problems. Turn fear and anger and resentment into knowing yourself better. Let me give you an example. John is angry with Mary. John stops and explores his anger. I am angry that I can never do it good enough for Mary, no matter what I do. And then he thinks, well, when did I first learn this? That I can never do it good enough. I'm always being criticized. And then John begins to think, well, I learned that in my family of origin. And my dad, and how angry and frustrated I felt growing up with Dad's impossible expectations and his hypercriticalness. Very negatively critical. And this is the source of John's anger at Mary. It's not that Mary may indeed be critical. She may indeed have high expectations. But our reactivity is what causes solutions to fail and clarity to prevail. We don't have the clarity and our solutions fail when we're in a reactive mode because we're not able to stay calm, think, negotiate, express needs, be empathetic. That all stops when we get reactive. Now we have problems within the relationship. I would suggest you work with a coach or a therapist on these old issues which are still alive in us. John can learn to contract with his wife about realistic wants, needs, calmly and non-reactively. And say, I know. And maybe you can even share in a non-reactive way. Let me give you some examples where, Mary, you were sharing with me how you were critical of me, and when actually this is what I was thinking, and this is what I was doing. And it keeps the highly charged, emotionally charged part of the relationship down so that we can be heard. Because if we're in a highly charged situation, it's hard to be heard and it's hard to hear. You can't do either one when we're all emotionally charged. So the first thing we have to do is calmness. Calmness infuses maturity and stability into a reactive relationship. And I have the video, Calmness is Everything. It's about an hour and a half video on YouTube and on my channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems on YouTube. And you can learn more about how that calmness can be utilized for improving relationships and making healthy relationships. Fourthly, detach from your pendulum functioning in a relationship. And pendulum functioning is a black and white functioning, an A or B functioning. And we want to work to move away from A and B thinking. We want to work towards option C thinking. Okay, I can either withdraw and be mad, that's A, or I can stay engaged and express my anger and all of my triggering and my anxiety, that's B. And that often we don't think about or work on thinking about what's in option C. Because all I feel and all I want to do automatically is A or B. And then we just stay stuck in the A or B options. C option is I can calm down. I can learn more about myself and self-functioning and self-knowledge to understand where this might be coming from. I can also work on staying calm again and approaching my spouse or friend and begin to open that dialogue with them, and that I can begin to share with them in a different way around this issue. So it's the same issue, but I'm coming to it with a different envelope, a different package, a different emotional field, and in a different emotional state. That changes the issue quite a bit in how it works in the relationship. So we want to work at getting away from A and B options, the only two I feel I have, because many times people feel like they just have two options. And that's the way they've always functioned. And often it's either an over-functioning or an under-functioning. Or it's an enmeshment or a total cutoff. Well, what's a C option? Which would be, how can I kind of stay connected and also share myself? That's usually a C option. And then fifthly, connect with your partner using yourself. Resist de-selfing when dealing with and having a relationship with your partner. Always go with the mind towards not de-selfing. How can I go and negotiate and talk to, share affection, share negative feelings? Sometimes we need to share negative feelings while being ourselves. And that this then communicates to the other partner, whoever that is, that I'm not going to de-self to try to resolve this problem. I can't. It only makes the problem worse. So I want to show up with me. And there's some inner bonding books like Margaret Paul that helps you stay connected to you and your inner child and your adult child, so that you bring your inner child and your adult child to the relationship. And that helps the relationship heal, helps the relationship grow. Be your true self as much as possible. Connect with your partner where you can. If John's angry about Mary being overcritical and he gets triggered by that, though he's now calmer now because he's gotten some knowledge of where that began and began to work on his issues regarding his dad. Well, where can I connect with Mary? Because Mary has other sides too, besides being hypercritical and high expectations. Connect with her other parts of her. Be affectionate with her other parts of her. What we'll tend to do is go, well, if you're going to be hypercritical of me, I'm going to shut down all intimacy and all connection with you. Well, that's not going to help. That's only going to exacerbate the problem, not help the problem. Sometimes we even have to pretend affection before it arrives. That's what I call that intentional love. Because love is not just whatever feeling you're feeling at the time. Love is action. Love is doing something. And just because my feelings, we don't always want to trust what we're feeling. I may want to act on principle. I do love this person, and so I'm going to act lovingly, even though inside I'm going, I don't love them very much right now. Well, that may be systems feelings talking to you, not your real feelings. Systems feelings will erode the true loving and caring in a relationship and the feelings we have for another person. I wanted to share those things with you today. Please visit my website, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems. Go to that website and join. I hope you will join there. More content and more things are being added to the website. There's a blog on there as well. Hopefully we'll put up another blog posting today. I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. And I want to thank you all for watching today. Have a great day. Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert and the director of the Center for Self-Differentiation in Carmel, Indiana, on the north side of Indianapolis. And this video is entitled Breaking the Family Trance. All of us grow up in families in which we are, so to speak, hypnotically induced into a hypnotic state in which we come to accept the paradigm of our families as the norm, and those are paradigms that we adopt. For some families, those paradigms are not as toxic. For other families, those paradigms and that trance that we are placed in that started at childhood continue on into adulthood and are quite toxic and quite unhealthy. Let me read a quote to you that I found, which I really enjoy. Family trance is a word used by family systems therapists and family systems theorists, and this one is a good one. It says, the deepest trance you'll ever be in is in your family trance, says Jane Parsons Fine. When you think you're changed, whether thanks to therapy, support groups, workshops, or simply increased self-knowledge, just go home for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays and experience those old emotional buttons. And I see a whole herd of planes going by that are all kind of antique. I apologize. When you think you're changed, whether thanks to therapy, support groups, workshop, or simply increase in knowledge, just go home for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays and experience those old emotional buttons being pressed by family members. You are back in trance, which started the moment you were born. And I really think there's a lot of truth to that, and that's an experience that people have. And we, and a lot of folks experience that trance. I also realize that when I work with folks, I find that when they begin to break that trance, they really begin to see the world differently. They begin to see themselves differently. Smells are different. Visions are different. They see their family different. They see their own lives differently. It really is an awakening when you break that family trance, because that trance goes with you wherever you go. It's not something we notice because it's trance-like, and it's not something we are as aware of. But once it's broken, you really do see how, wow, I was really in a trance with my family of origin. And I think even hypnosis is considered nothing but the manifestation of an emotional state of increased intensity. And I think that state of increased intensity is a part of what happens when we're born and go on through our childhood. For those who have toxic or dysfunctional families, that intensity is really intense and toxic and remains for a long time. By the way, that was the famous Ivan Pavlov who said that quote about hypnosis, as in Pavlov's dog, and what he revealed concerning behaviorism. I think kids are highly suggestible. If we're going to use a hypnotic theme, kids are very highly suggestible because they are so dependent upon family members and parents. One thing I read recently by an author, Peter Teitelman, in his book, The Therapist's Own Family, which is an excellent book, and he talks about this, that a parent's feeling, a parent having a feeling becomes the child's reality. And that's how closely connected parents and children are. Parents' feelings become reality for children because they're not self-differentiated. They are connected to us, and thus begins the trance process. And so whatever our parents felt and felt about things, believed things, and their emotional field and emotional inner life, whatever it was like, that was reality for us. And then as we grow older, we begin to have our own reality. Well, that can be very difficult if you're still under the trance of, let's say, a dysfunctional family. Let me give you my definition of what a family trance is. It is the emotional paradigm or emotional and mental givens we learn and absorb emotionally when growing up in our own family of origin. We took in all of that emotional reality from our mother and father, from our siblings, from our family of origin. We take that in and absorb it. It becomes our reality. It becomes our norm. These givens are the glasses through which we see the world, especially relationships and self-awareness and self-image. It is through those awarenesses, through that paradigm. The family trance includes things for dysfunctional families. Certainly there are healthier trances if you grow up where there was support, self-differentiation, unconditional love, lots of nurturing. There was not a lot of emotional disturbance on the part of the parents and siblings. Then we have a different paradigm that we grow up with. For a dysfunctional paradigm, we grow up with often secrets. Secrets are very, very damaging in families. Family rules, the way you're to do things, the way you're to be, the way you're to think. Family expectations, family roles. Obsessiveness is a part of that trance. And when I think about obsessiveness, that's where we have an enmeshment problem in the family, in which mom and dad are over obsessive about the kids, or the kids are over obsessive about mom and dad, worrying about what do they think, what's going on inside them, how do they feel, what's happening. And when you do a lot of that obsession, that's a part of the family trance paradigm, that we're supposed to do that. Worry states, I think, are a part of that family trance. Are we to worry? We are to worry. How we're to worry. Fear states, guilt states, those are all a part of that family trance. The knowledge of what is normal or not normal is a part of that trance. Trauma can be a part of that trance. Emotional patterns in relationship becomes a part of that trance. The meaning of love, intimacy, success, and happiness are a part of that trance. How do you feel about love, money, sex? All of those things are a part of that paradigm that we inherit from our family of origin. And there are probably other parts of that paradigm, that trance, but I wanted to at least give you some examples of what's a part of that trance-like state. And again, these are not things that I have come to believe for myself. These are things I have absorbed, and these are things I have accepted as givens from my family of origin. And that also is not self-differentiation. Self-differentiation is when I come to accept those things as truly being normative, or I choose that. Then it becomes mine. And that's self-differentiation. Believe it or not, some of those things may parallel or be very similar with my family of origin. But until I choose them, then they are part of the trance and what's supposed to be accepted as norm. While it's possible to break your family trance, I don't believe it's an easy thing to do alone, because we're like fish swimming in a tank of water and we don't observe or see the water. The water is a given. We don't see the water. Fish don't see the water. That's just what they're in. And so it's not easy to see your water that you're in. If we get help from others, that can help us see the water that we're in. And then we begin to separate ourselves out from the water. We may decide we want a different tank, a different type of water, a different color water. I work with individuals, couples, and families every day to break the trance of those with a dysfunctional family background. I work very hard at that. I help folks to unpack that and to find a new paradigm and break the family trance, which also keeps people stuck, keeps people repeating patterns over and over again that end up in hurt or failure, finding wrong partners, repeating addictions that a parent's had, all kinds of problems that come from that family trance. So, how does someone break the family trance? Number one, we need knowledge, support, and input from outside the system. Again, it's hard to see the system if you're working within it. You need help to see outside. You need to borrow other people's objectivity. And I think that's what's been helpful in group, in therapy, reading books, coaching, support groups, whether ACOA or CODA or whatever. It helps people to reframe and to change how they see that family trance and how they see their family, so they don't continue on seeing it the way they've always seen it and keep running into the wall and getting stuck. So we need help to see our givens. We need help to see those givens so that we can decide what we want our givens to be. Let me give you an example of a given. Here's a family trance rule. If I stand up for myself, then I'm hurting those in my family. That's believed by everybody in my family. Nobody stands up for themselves because that's perceived as either being selfish, self-centered, and it only hurts other people, and it doesn't continue the enmeshment that we are supposed to have. So there's a lot of resistance to that because that's the paradigm. That is a given in many families. Another given could be, I'm not worth having a relationship with. Another given can be, when someone is unhappy, it is my job to help them or to help them resolve it. Those are some givens that we may have learned from our family of origin. So we first must begin to see that we have givens, and what are they? Number two, we need to unpack those family rules, unpack the family trends, and unpack what we have come to believe, accept, and absorb within ourselves. For example, I remember a long time ago talking to someone, and he said, when my wife, who is controlling, expects me to read this book to improve our marriage, am I wrong to refuse? Now, it depends on what your paradigm is. What's your trance that you're in? His trance told him it was wrong to refuse that because she would be mad, but he would have to de-self to read the book just to make her happy, and my job is to make her happy, and that's my paradigm, that's my trance that I live in, and so she won't be happy, so that she won't be mad, I will read the book. But I don't want to, and then I end up having resentment towards her for doing it. So now I'm caught in the trance of having to do it and being stuck in the resentment and the lack of self-differentiation. So the family rule is when someone asks you to do something out of their anxiety and get mad if you don't do it, then the rule is you do it. And that's a part of the family trance. And that's what's considered normal, and that's what he felt was normal. Now, it will temporarily ease the situation or ease the anxiety. The difficulty is it doesn't really fix the wife's anxiety, the wife's enmeshment and over-controllingness, and it doesn't fix the husband becoming more self-differentiated so he could actually be more affectionate, be more intimate, and share himself more with her. So it undermines all those things while making sure we accomplish this rule and accomplish this paradigm. So, what we do in learning to undo those family trances is we unpack those rules and we go back and take a look at the family and unpack those things. It's actually quite freeing, it's quite illuminating, and it gives you a lay of the land, it gives you a map, and now you can make choices of maybe what you'd like to do. Oh, well, if that's the case, then maybe I'd like to change that given in my life. Okay, I think I could do that. Now, that may not be easy because, for example, in this situation, it may not make the wife happy. But the problem is it's kind of a, if I can say, zero-sum game that either she's going to be happy or you're going to be happy. That's not a good marriage when only one person ends up being happy. That's a problem, and that will cause problems in the marriage in the long run. Number 3, learn and begin to internalize new rules and standards of what is normal for us. For example, in this instance, I can say no to my wife about the book, then expect to feel guilt, because that's my norm, that's my normal trance. I do have to feel guilt about that. But I'm going to work to resolve the guilt, not work to resolve my wife's anxiety by reading the book. So I'm going to come at it from a different way, and I'm going to learn to feel less guilt and to be myself with my wife, rather than do the old paradigm and the old trance. When someone asks you to do something out of their anxiety, remember it is their anxiety, and get mad if you don't do it. Remember, they are choosing to get mad and use getting mad because it works with you. I give myself freedom to not comply and give them the freedom to feel their anxiety and their madness if they wish, knowing I'm not the cause, nor am I to blame for them being mad. And that's a new paradigm and a new frame and a new understanding. And it breaks down the old family of origin trance, which says we must do it the other way. Number 4, claiming and determining what is going to be normal for me, which may or may not coincide with the family trance. Some things might, but some things might not. For example, the family has a secret. Dad is an alcoholic. Now, he functions. He's the vice president of a company. He still drinks too much and drinks too often, has problems with that, but he still functions, pays the bills, etc. But we don't talk about that in our family. That's not discussed. It's not to be talked about. The mom and siblings, let's say me, the mom and my siblings are still in denial. To label him an alcoholic is demeaning and mean in their opinion, and they don't believe he is, because that would be too horrible to think their dad is actually an alcoholic. But my new paradigm tells me he clearly is. I've gotten some outside help to look at my water in the tank, and the water in the tank's not very clear. Dad really is an alcoholic, and I never knew. Now I've come to see he has all the traits of alcoholism, and that I clearly see he has all the symptoms, and I can understand better why we have some of the problems that we have. While it is not my job to diagnose Dad, I will now live my life that, in my opinion, he is an alcoholic, and I will live accordingly to that. So when Mom comes to the family dinner alone, says Dad doesn't feel well, Mom covers for his excessive drinking. He was drinking too much and can't come to the dinner because he's not feeling well. And not feeling well is always the code for Dad is drinking too much. The child, or me, I can say, well, Mom, I hope Dad gets help for his not feeling well. Typically, Mom, Dad drinks too much and then can't participate in family events. I love him, but he needs to get some help. That's my opinion. Someday, maybe he will do so. Mom says, don't talk about your father that way. You know he's not an alcoholic. I would respond, Mom, I've decided not to stay silent about Dad's drinking. It has been a problem and a secret for years. I'm not criticizing Dad. He is ill. I'm not going to play the game that he's not drinking, because we all know he is, and I'm just not going to play that game anymore. I still love him. I still care about him, but that's not a game I choose to play. A new paradigm has been established. I've stepped outside the family trance. Of course, Mom wants you back in the fold, and she wants you back in the family trance, and of course that's to be expected, and we understand that, and we plan for that. That's why we work on role-playing and lots of things to support folks in doing those new behaviors. But Mom would like you back in the fold and under the trance and under the spell again. Only you can decide, I'm not going to be under the spell again and don't wish to. Fifthly, I think role-playing is a helpful learning tool for breaking the trance. I offer clients my objectivity to see outside the trance and to see outside the family. I do many role plays with clients, many scenarios. They play different family members, and I play the new paradigm to them. And I play them as though they have a new paradigm. Often they're not even aware they can even think that way. And that's what I think a therapist, a coach, a sponsor, someone in a support group can be of help to you to see outside your trance and to see outside the family walls of what is normal. And that's where we can begin to practice those new beliefs, understandings, because many times when we do role play, they always are stymied and go, I don't know what my family member would say to that, because I've never said that to them. How did you know to say that to them? Because I had some objectivity. Let me let you borrow that so that you can begin to come out of your trance as people helped me out of mine. If you're struggling with feeling stuck in the family trance and you want a new paradigm, you want some freedom, some hope, more happiness, more satisfaction in your life, more self-differentiation, which I think can produce some of those things, I want you to give me a call or send me an email, contact me, and I'll help you with that personal struggle of your own, your marriage, your family. See the screen for contact information that should be on the screen where you can see that. I hope you will join our YouTube channel. Please share this video with your social media. We'd certainly appreciate that. Write me for more information. I'll respond to every email. I want to thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert. I'm the director for the Center of Self-Differentiation. I've been a relationship expert and coach for 40 years, almost. I'm fortunate enough to be down here in South Beach and Miami, staying at my favorite hotel, the Metropolitan Como Hotel, which I would recommend to anyone. It's a beautiful hotel, and the hotel service is spectacular. They've been so kind in helping me. I work with adult children of narcissists, and I work with many other people who have different problems as well. But I know one of the core group are those who grew up with narcissistic parents, and trying to help them achieve a sense of inner freedom, new life, new direction, and detachment from that old abuse and trauma, and to find their real selves. Today in this video I wanted to share 6 painful core issues which often cause significant pain for adult children of narcissists. There's certainly other core issues, and I'll share more in other videos, but these 6 I wanted to share with you. We only have so much time on a video, and I wanted to try to pack these 6 in. The first one is self-power shedding. We shed our own sense of power. We give our power away to other people. Adult children of alcoholics give their internal and external power away to others. The reason that we do that is when we grew up, or when we've been in relationships with narcissists, we realize that to retain our own sense of power, to retain a sense of self, to have a sense of self, would have caused us more trauma, abuse, discounting, and targeting from narcissists, and particularly narcissistic parents. We couldn't be ourselves when we grew up. It would just be too dangerous, too painful, too difficult. And so we learned to shed that power and give it away to others. As we interact with others, we always make them more powerful than ourselves. And that's to try to keep us safe, and not to be authentic, and not to put ourselves out there where we can be abused, misused, lied to, given excuses to, blamed. We over-own our weakness, our powerlessness, our value, and our low sense of self. We over-own that time and time again. In another paradigm, say in the chemical dependency world or addiction world, some call this codependency. Though I think if you use a family systems view of it, it takes on a different character. And it's that shedding of power that we do in relationships. It's a pattern that happens. For the adult children of narcissists, they experience themselves as nothing, as hidden, as unreal, and invisible. Everyone and everything in life trumps theirs. Remember that the adult child of a narcissist experienced being ground into the ground by the parents that they had when they shed their shame onto their children, which is what narcissists do. Narcissists are always shame shedding. They shed it and focus it towards other people, because at the core of narcissism is an inner deep core of shame that they cannot and have not dealt with. And they shed that onto others. We then end up shedding our powerlessness from ourselves. And again, it ends up crushing the child. So now we live life like we are pancaked with a heel on top of us from our family of origin. Adult children of narcissists give their emotional power away to others while feeling too much and not engaging the thinking process more. They just tend to engage the feeling process more, and then that makes it more difficult for them. Adult children give away their life power as well. Their money, their time, their effort, their compliments, their support, etc. And we pour ourselves out, leaving little or nothing left. And this is our overfunctioning to the max. And adult children of narcissists tend to do that. It's not uncommon that adult children of alcoholics do that as well. The second painful core issue is leaving the present. It's also known as dissociation. Wikipedia gives a definition of dissociation, if you've wondered about that. In psychology, it says dissociation is any of a wide array of experiences, from mild detachment from immediate surroundings to more severe detachment from physical and emotional experience. The major characteristic of all dissociative phenomena involves a detachment from reality rather than a loss of reality, as in psychosis. We don't lose reality, we detach from reality. And that's a big difference. Some people say, oh, you mean, well, then I'm psychotic and I just lose reality? No, you detach from reality. You don't lose it, you detach from it. Adult children of alcoholics detach from reality, and this can be true for ACOAs and adult children of abuse who grew up in sexually or physically abusive homes. When things get stressful or frightening for the adult child, or very confrontational, we just check out. We just aren't there. Then we come back to ourselves and clean up the damage, and often then just feel crazy and worthless and very abnormal. We also dissociate by flight, freezing, and triangulating. Those are all things that we want to get away from the reality of the situation right now. And in another video, I talk about flight, freezing, triangulating, and then what we want to do is think and begin to think and be mature and process what's going on up here. Rather than just living from our lower brain, we want to process from our higher brain. Again, adult children have memory loss. They kind of gray out. They have a sense of disconnection from oneself and from the surroundings. Here's some examples of what people say when dissociation occurs. I explode at my husband and can't remember what I said. I just don't feel real. I'm just doing things automatically. I can become so totally concerned about what people are thinking of me or expecting from me when I'm talking to them that I become lost. I lose me. I couldn't remember whether it really happened or I imagined it happened. I don't feel like myself. I feel like some other person inside. Those are some examples of dissociation. There are many others as well. Thirdly, a core issue, feeling isolated. Feeling isolated even in a crowd. and have few to no peaceful or stable relationships. Doesn't mean we're not married, doesn't mean we have friends, but oftentimes those relationships can be rocky, roller coasterish, have all kinds of instability in them. Most have a roller coaster element in those relationships, or what I call bipolar relationships or bipolar marriages. Adult children of narcissists have a love, hate, fear relationship and abandonment fear in their relationships. Again, feeling very isolated in their own little stovepipe. Adult children of narcissists are overwhelmed by other people. That's very common. If you've been abused verbally, physically, emotionally, sexually by narcissistic parents growing up, then you will be overwhelmed and feel overwhelmed just being with other people. They experience only conditional love from others. That the whole world is built on conditional love and conditional acceptance. They experience relationships as having one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator most of the time. And they never know whether they want to go or stop, or go or stop, or go or stop. And sometimes they'll just jam on both and have lots of stress and anxiety as it goes up, and end up burning up the engine, or themselves, and not really going anywhere. Sartre, the philosopher, said something and wrote something very poignant, I think, for this. He said, hell is other people. And I think that sums up many times the experience of relationships for adult children of narcissists. Fourth painful and core issue, unresolved intergenerational trauma. Oftentimes, narcissistic parents were abused by other narcissistic or alcoholic parents or abusive parents who were abused by their parents, who were abused by their parents, and there's an intergenerational transmission of that trauma and pain on down to us. From narcissistic abuse, emotional and physical, from shame shedding by narcissistic parent or parents, and creates frequent and intense reactivity in us, or PTSD, feelings of desolation. This family brain, I would call it, or lower brain or limbic brain that we learned growing up in our family of origin, we have inherited from that intergenerational trauma. This guides and pings our feeling system. The emotional system is not felt, but it is triggered. The feeling system is conscious and felt, and we have feelings. And one of the things I work with people is to help them heal and resolve and grow up their emotional system, not just deal with the feelings that come as a result of it, or to change that system within them. For example, denial and believing we had loving parents. That is a belief that comes out of the trauma, the narcissistic trauma. I love my parents. I know they love me. However much, if anything, and all they do doesn't say they know how to love someone. But I still believe that. Intense shame from the shame shedding. Hypervigilance when interacting with others. Too much awareness, too much sensitivity, too much emotionality or feelings because of this unresolved intergenerational trauma. And then we have the internalized abuse and shame and criticism that's stuck right in here. And so to resolve that resolves the intergenerational trauma. Fifthly, the adult child of narcissists have a negative, grandiose fantasy. There's a grandiosity about them. Now let me tell you what that means. Grandiose in a negative way is how an adult child of a narcissist would experience it. The narcissist has a grandiosity that is in a positive way. They see themselves as way too wonderful, way too great, way too fantastic. they can affect the whole world. They can affect their children. They can affect everybody. Everybody needs to do their bidding and come on bended knee to them. The adult child of narcissist also has a grandiosity, but it's a negative. I'm so special because I'm not special at all. I'm so powerful because I feel powerless. We then feel over-responsible for everything, everybody, and all things, others' feelings, others' reactivity, others' disappointments and judgments. And the reason why relationships fail is it's all my fault. Why they succeed, it must be what I'm doing right, or adjusting, or pandering, or helping make the relationship work, and that's why it worked. It seems everything is my fault and is at my control. That's very, very grandiose. And it causes us a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain. Everyone sees me. Everyone's always watching me. Everybody's aware of me and thinks about me. No one would ever want to be a friend to me. No one in the world. Very grandiose. And even, I say, we feel responsible for the weather. And again, it's a very grandiose negative. And I mean responsible for the weather in a negative way. If it rained, well, what did I do wrong? We were going to have a picnic, now we had bad weather. Well, I probably didn't do something right, or displeased God, or something. Very grandiose. Stop thinking you are so special. Learn a healthy specialness, not a grandiose specialness. That you can upset everyone that much that you know you're not that important or not that powerful. That can be very freeing if we can come to believe that and understand that. Narcissistic parents so crush us that we feel so desolate that we learn to believe we affect everything in a negative way, and that we're special, in quotes, in that way. We want to heal that negative specialness. I'm not special. I'm just a human like everybody else. I'm going to be on this earth and then not be on this earth. And that's okay. I don't have that much power. I can't cause all the problems people think I can cause. And I certainly can't cause all their feelings, because I'm not that powerful, not that special. Because if I can cause all the negative feelings in you, then I ought to be able to cause all the positive feelings in you. And I've found that to be very difficult to do. And believe me, for decades I tried. Sixthly, enmeshment and overcloseness. Adult children of narcissists lack emotional detachment. They lack self-differentiation. They lack separateness. They're too fused with their narcissist and their family of origin. And they carry that fusion on into their later adult relationships. This creates feelings of loneliness, isolation, detachment from self and others. And again, it's because I'm so attached. We're overly attached. We're overly blended together rather than self-differentiated. Here's unhealthy distance, here's unhealthy closeness, here's self-differentiation. And again, relationships are paradoxical, and I'll mention that in a moment. Adult children try to fix this with more closeness, fusion, and attachment, which results in bad marriages, friendships, work relationships, all kinds of difficult relationships, because we're pushing the wrong way. We're over close, but we think the solution is more closeness, because we feel kind of distant inside and kind of isolated. So we misread our relationship system and do what's intuitive, which only gets us into more trouble, rather than doing what's counterintuitive. I don't know if you've seen those Chinese bamboo finger cuffs that you stick your fingers in them, and then when you pull, they tighten. I was going to bring some on the trip and I forgot to do it. Push those in, then pull. It's intuitive for us to pull out of that bamboo stricture. But the way you get out of it is to push in and then pull out. And that's counterintuitive. Same way with relationships. Relationships and systems thinking tells us relationships work paradoxically. To get close, we must get some distance resulting from our abuse and our trauma. That distance makes intimacy happen. Over closeness keeps intimacy from happening. And when I work with marriages, so often the couple is over close and they're trying to get closer and be intimate. And I keep telling them, if you could learn to be more independent, and if I can use that word, more differentiated, more distance between you, you might be able to come together and be more close as a couple. If you want help with these 6 painful core issues, contact me to schedule one-on-one sessions with you to help you free yourself from that helplessness, despair, rage, self-pity, self-loathing, and enmeshment, and all the ways that we're stuck emotionally or in relationally. I work as a self-expert. I hope you'll contact me. My contact information is on the screen. You can also, I hope you will join my YouTube channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems on YouTube. The same name for my Facebook webpage. And I do have a website, jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. And I hope you'll continue to follow my videos. I've got several videos that are coming very quickly. And I want to thank you today for joining me down in sunny Miami here, and I hope you have a great day. Hi everyone, my name is Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years I've been helping people who grew up in narcissistic, toxic, and dysfunctional families. And I have worked with them to get their family dysfunction out of them and become their true selves they were never allowed to be. Today I want to talk about 9 things I wish I knew 60 years ago about healing from family dysfunction. And I want to share these with you. The number one thing that has probably done the most to change my life, change my thinking, change my emotional life, help me to survive very difficult times, and also heal from trauma. And that is self-differentiation. So number one, learning that self-differentiation was the key. And you may think, well, I don't really know what that is, or that's fine. If you don't know what it is, I have plenty of videos where I begin to talk about that. And I'll even talk about what self-differentiation is now and how it's missing from most of the advice out there. Because I knew that my self-esteem was bad. I did kind of know that. And I did feel bad about myself. Good codependent, religiously addicted, messed up in many ways, mentally and emotionally. And I did not know how my self-esteem should go up. How do you make it go up? What do you do to make it go up? And of course, I went on a quest to try to figure that out. Going to school for pre-law, music, and then into psychology, pastoral counseling, marriage and family therapy, and on from there to learn how to heal myself is really what I was doing. I knew things weren't great in my family growing up. I wanted to be not my family. But how do I become not my family? Because that's all I knew. That's all the programming and experience that I had had. I had not grown up in anybody else's family. I'd only grown up in my family. There was a lot of simplified, superficial advice out there that was good. I would even say was good advice, but it didn't get to the core, I felt. And that underlying broken paradigm, it just didn't go deep enough. Again, the advice may not have been bad advice, but it didn't go to the heart of things. And it tended more for me to be more superficial. No one was talking about how relationships work, how relationships are systems with pushes and pulls, and also how my dysfunction was caught up in all of that and in all the relationships in my life. In beginning to discover that, I felt a greater empowerment when I began to learn about self-differentiation. Simply put, self-differentiation is being yourself, being your true self, while not taking on the toxicity or expectations of others, and just being you. And I didn't mean in a mean way, in an arrogant way, but learning to be you as a solid self, and you're not guided by other people's expectations, other people's approval, likes of you, dislikes of you, even their toxicity or anger or frustration. That's not guiding your inner core. Second of all, don't change others. Focus on changing your emotional location, which basically means change you, not them. I think I try to explain to people, and I talk more about it in other works that I have and workshops and programs that I've created for those who follow me, that when you become more emotionally detached, that's a change of your emotional location. If you have a puzzle and all of the family is in this puzzle and all the pieces fit together, if one person in the puzzle becomes more detached and more a real self, that changes their location in the puzzle. And then others in the puzzle have to shift and change around to either force you or want you to come back, reject you so there's just a hole missing, or they come to adapt to the new you. But anytime you make that mental and emotional change, a paradigm change, then you're changing emotional location. And that's very critical for how you experience the world. If I give up feelings of guilt and shame and shift my emotional location in the family, then what happens is when I give up that guilt and shame, it shifts that location in the family. I'm not in the family in the same way. If I waved a magic wand and said you're going to go to your family dinner, gathering, whatever, and you cannot feel guilt or shame, do you think that would change something? It would certainly change something for you. My hunch is it would change something for them, or at least they would be alerted that something is different here. Because often we will act and react out of our guilt and shame, which is so commonly programmed into us in dysfunctional families. And so we then shift our place in that emotional location. Another way to think about it is you have a mobile. And a mobile is all those pieces. You remember you may have built some of those when you were in junior high or whatever in art class. And you have all these pieces on there. And if you move one piece, it shifts all the others. Family operates the same way. You change one piece, all the other pieces must adjust to that somehow. And so we want to learn to change our emotional location, which is shifting your position in the mobile for you to become healthier and more self-differentiated. And I learned that that was very important. Number 3, healing takes time, and that it's not good to run after quick fixes. In other words, I have to work to learn about how I work in my family, how I work in the emotional process of my family, how they work in me, how I work in them, how they react to me, how I react to them. I must learn some of these very important dynamics. They are often simple dynamics because it's not complicated. You already know this information. You just haven't been alerted to it or known how to use it effectively to grow, to be yourself. Because if I know how things operate between the two of us, whether you do or not, I still have an advantage or a leverage at that point. And I can begin to be myself more in this dance that we do, whether you know how you operate in the system or not. I can still change me in the dance and learn new steps. So, what is a quick fix? I think, simply put, a quick fix does not take in systems dynamics or systems perspective. For example, a quick fix might be somebody telling you, oh, just go to them and talk it out. Go to your narcissistic father and just talk that out. I mean, don't we have a society where you need to talk about things? It's good to get things out in the open. It's good to clear the air. It's good. Well, yes, that's a good way of thinking and doing. However, if we know more about how narcissism works in relationships, if we know more about how your family operates, then we probably wouldn't want to take that advice in that simple, quick fix way. It probably will be a disaster. And that's why I hesitate in giving people different types of advice, because they many times tell me, well, just tell me what to do. Well, it's not just about telling you what to do, because you could go do it, but you're going to go fly a 747 and you haven't even learned how to fly a Cessna yet. And so learning systems thinking, learning how you operate in the system, which you can learn because you have all the information, you're just not used to looking at it. And once you look at it, you'll go, oh, that's simpler than I thought. And the whole world begins to open up in a different way. And so that's an example of a quick fix. Now, with regard to quick fixes, maybe going and talking it out is just fine if you don't have a highly charged emotional relationship, like, say, a narcissistic relationship or dysfunctional one. If you have a very close friend who loves you dearly and you both get along really well, you both respect each other, well, then go talk it out. You don't have to go any deeper than that. But if it's a much more highly charged situation, you've got to know more to be able to fly that 747 and not just the Cessna, if you're just going to run into it and try to do it. And I think that we don't want to go and just confront situations we don't like. Why is that? Am I telling people not to be assertive? Not to express their feelings? Not to express their beliefs? Yeah, exactly. That is what I'm saying. Don't do that. Why am I telling you not to do that in highly charged situations? Because if you understand systems, the more the relationship is charged with anxiety, the less butting of heads you should be doing. We have to wait until that anxiety goes down before we can have that kind of discussion, or it won't go well. And in fact, what we would want to learn about before we went and did all this confrontation is understand the decades of family of origin programming that we've had, understand our level of self-esteem and self-confidence, our understanding our anxious, dysregulated emotional process. When are we going to get reactive? And do you know when you're going to get reactive? Do you know how to not get reactive? And when we understand that the deep need for their acceptance and approval is still present, I still need their acceptance and approval, then don't go confront a narcissist, because you're going to get neither. It's going to become real bad. When we have this continued deep need for them to change, and we'd like to change them, we have difficulty thinking clearly when emotionality runs high within us. And if we easily feel shamed and guilt, which are what I call systems feelings, when we feel those feelings, and if we are easily have access to those, unfortunately, or they occur quite readily, then it's not good to just take quick fixes, go and challenge someone, just go talk it out. Here, just go tell them the Bible verse they need to know so they know they're wrong and you're right. Don't challenge them because they made fun of your career or your. We have to be wiser than that. And one of the things, since I come from a religious background, be as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, and self-differentiation is the way to become wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. It really did blend into what I believed about what I wanted to become. Number 4, your feelings are not always valid. I always learn so many times from so many books. All your feelings are valid. They're all equal. They're all equally important. If you believe that, you are going to make lots of mistakes. Because and follow your heart and follow your feelings. Do you know how often your feelings mislead you? You think you grew up in a dysfunctional family and all of your feelings are valid, appropriate, real, and true? No, 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 no. Your feelings are not, many of them are not. And in fact, I had to come to learn to understand the difference between systems feelings and my real feelings. I didn't know that all feelings shouldn't be honored. All are valid, but not because they are true. In other words, if you have systems guilt and feel guilt, and that's feeling guilt over nothing, you haven't done anything wrong, there's no reason for the guilt, but you feel guilty because they want you to feel guilty. It's still a valid feeling, but it's not a true feeling. You don't have true guilt. In other words, you haven't done anything wrong. It's there to control your behavior, your thinking, your feeling, your actions. It's there to control all those things. And that's how partly the family system programs us. So learning the difference that not all feelings are valid and true. I didn't know that. I just thought they all were. So every feeling, no matter how systems oriented it was versus my true feelings, I just took it all as it's all valid and it's all good. If I'm feeling shame, then I'm feeling shame. No, you are feeling shame. I mean, I'm not denying that. But what is the source of the shame? Is it because you feel shame, or is it because you're supposed to feel shame? And one is an individual model, one is a systems model. And I'll talk more about that in other videos. Number 5, your boundaries are only as good as your inner boundaries. So external or physical boundaries, whatever kind of limitations you have with other people in your life, are only as good as your inner boundaries. And I remember reading a study, it talked about assertiveness training. And I remember back 300 years ago when we were all talking about assertiveness training, and that was the big thing. Assertiveness training is great. There's nothing wrong with assertiveness training. The problem is what they found in the research is someone will take assertiveness training, do very well, and then it will just trail off. And why does it do that? Because the inner self-esteem, the inner boundaries or detachment was not present. And so you can learn to do certain things, but it's going to be hard to maintain it if you don't work with what's going on in here first. And so, again, I attempted many times to set boundaries, but I was so filled with low self-worth, need for acceptance, intense guilt, anxious reactivity, and all those things have to do with inner boundaries. And if I have all those things going on, my boundaries are probably not going to go very well. I'm going to have a hard time thinking them up. I'm going to have a hard time sharing them. And I'm going to have a hard time insisting on those boundaries. Number 6, become okay with disappointing others. That's one of the things I wish I'd have known 60 years ago. That it's okay to disappoint others. That's called life. Have you, and as a good codependent, as I was, that, you're not supposed to disappoint other people. And it was too painful for me to disappoint someone else because it caused me too much upsetness. So then I would keep being the doormat or the overfunctioner. And again, the difficulty was it was so important for me to learn to disappoint. And really, to not disappoint others is to rescue them from their feelings. And so I needed to learn not to rescue other people from their feelings or their experience. And I remember going through chaplaincy training that was very, very tough training. It was very significant and a really a grind to go through. And the supervisor I had was he was actually phenomenal, but he actually drove us absolutely nuts because we were just so novice at what we were doing, and he was quite experienced. And he would use that to help us learn and grow very quickly, but it was painful. And learning not to rescue the people that we were working with, patients who were dying, family members who are experiencing deep grief. It's not helpful to rescue. It's helpful to be alongside and be a support. But boy, that's tough to learn that when someone's really having a hard time. Or, as I've had for clients for 45 years, a client says, well, how do I do that, Jerry? I don't know how to do that. I'm just lost. Do I rush in and rescue and fix? No. I go, well, where did you learn that you don't know what to do? And where did you learn that you were lost? Let's go back there. Rather than me going, well, let me tell you exactly what you should do and do this and do this and do that. Let me rescue you. And then, of course, if it doesn't work, they're going to blame me. And that's just not a good dynamic between the coach or therapist and the client. It's not a good dynamic to have that. It doesn't mean I don't care. I know how it can feel to feel lost. I get that. But lost doesn't mean you cannot find yourself, if I can say it that way. You can be lost. You also can find yourself because you are with yourself. You are yourself. But more on that later. Number 7, don't use normal rules for abnormal relationships. That was something I began to learn over these many years and how important that is. But that's also looking at it in the sense of more of a systems way of looking at it. And what I mean by that is, if you believe love your neighbor, okay, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's fabulous. It's a good injunction. It's a good law. It's a good, that's fine. However, how do you live that out with a malignant narcissist? How do you live it out? That can become really tricky. And if you use the standard rules or normal rules for families, for relationships, even the Bible in its normal use, you can become pretty abused and not for a good purpose. And so what we have to recognize is that, wait a minute, this is an abnormal relationship, and they may be abnormal or unwell or narcissistic or sociopathic or whatever. And I need to be careful about the rules I use and how I operate with them. If you had a good friend of yours who came up and said, hey, could you loan me $200? I just had a car problem and had to pay that, and I just need some gas money for a week or two. Could you help me with that? Well, you might be willing to go, well, sure, let me see if I can help you with that. Now, that's kind of what normal people do, right? In a normal relationship. But in an abnormal relationship, someone may want to take advantage of you and may be looking to abuse you in some way. So in those situations, I may not loan the $200 or give them the $200 for their cash. So I'm using abnormal rules. I'm not going to help you because of the toxicity that's there versus, oh, of course I'll help you because we have a normal kind of relationship that's more mutual. So I learned that I have to watch how I apply all of these rules and social norms that I've believed all my life and how they apply. And we have to be very careful about that. Yeah, in terms of normal rules, I always felt I had to accept and play by the rules others set. You set them, and then I need to play by them. However, they would act abnormally and in a toxic or abusive way and expect me to use conventional, healthy, and caring rules towards them. That's very unwise. It is very unwise to do that. And in fact, you will be enabling the toxicity. In other words, having a dynamic where they express, I won't respect you, but you should always respect me. I feel no empathy to help you, but you must always be kind and generous to me. That's kind of the using normal rules for abnormal relationships. Number 8, you are not responsible for others, even if they say you are. I always felt over-responsible for everyone. I just had a big, over-caring heart, I thought. But my caring at its core was not actually about them. It was actually about me. My guilt, my anxiety, my fears, my need for approval, my low self-esteem, because then I could use me caring for them to lift my self-esteem. And I'm not saying helping others doesn't improve depression and can help with self-esteem, but that's not the dynamic I'm talking about right now. It's that I would use that in a way that I felt over-responsible for others. Their feelings, however they felt, whatever they thought, it must be my responsibility. And came to learn that it really isn't. I have enough to deal with my own feelings, thoughts, beliefs, wishes, wants, preferences. I've got enough to deal with that without managing yours. And I would manage others all the time, and it just became overwhelming. Number 9, if you don't self-differentiate from your family, you are likely to remain stuck or in problematic systems or relationships. My stuckness for years was about not focusing more on me and about not going deep enough to address underlying relationship dynamics, meaning self-differentiation. I needed to go deeper to understand what was working rather than just a superficial understanding of what was going on. If you resonated with this video, I highly recommend joining my free training, Build the Real Self You Were Never Allowed to Have. See the link below, where I give you practical advice and tools to apply all of this to your own life and unique situation. Learning about and doing the work of self-differentiation will unlock many of your recovery efforts. Self-differentiation is the most effective way to become your true self, your strong self. Self-differentiation from your family of origin is the most powerful way to mature and heal, grow, and recover, because you can apply this way of thinking and feeling to all areas of your life. I hope that you will subscribe, like, comment. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.